back to the Maximum Mileage Coaching channel. I'm Nick Hancock, USCA and UK Athletics coach, sub-3 marathoner and competitive ultra runner. And I wanted to talk to you today about the long run and why it's probably not as important as you think it might be. Now, of course, they are important. So let's not say they're not important. Let's not say that we don't need to do them, because they provide massive amounts of benefit to us, particularly around mitochondrial biogenesis. That's building more of those energy factories in our cells that convert food into energy, which we then use to propel ourselves forward and run faster and further. But it is easily, by far and away, the most common question I get asked is, how long will my longest run be for my marathon or ultra marathon or whatever it might be? And I think particularly in the ultra marathon world, because generally in marathons, most training plans, most coaches will prescribe something like a 20 to 22 mile long run, which I do, for a marathon. That is fairly common practice. And that gets then transferred into the ultramarathon world, where, okay, so the logical thinking is, well, if my 100 miler is obviously 100 miles, well, I said that, if my 100 miler is 100 miles, therefore my longest long run is going to need to be something like 75% of my 100 mile ultramarathon, because in the marathon world, the 26 miles is preceded by a 22 mile long run, roughly around 75%. But recovering from a 75 mile long run is pretty tough. That's quite rough going, and particularly if you think of it in the context of a solo training run. There's a big difference between rocking up to a 75 mile run, having just woken up on a Sunday morning. You've got to get stuff sorted in the house, make sure the kids have got their breakfast sorted, and maybe the dogs need a walk and that kind of thing. And then you're going to go out and do 75 miles on your own. Not really ideal, because you've then got to think about logistics and water and food and fueling, and do you need additional kit dropping off? You don't have a crew to just come and crew you on a random Sunday afternoon. So yeah, I tend not to give exorbitantly long runs to my athletes for those reasons, really. Other than all the logistical stuff, if you then come back even from something like a 50k long run, and let's say you get back at, let's call it 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then your partner at home has been dealing with the kids all day and the dogs and the chores and having to entertain and all that kind of stuff, and you get back from that long run, and then you can't recover from it properly, because there's chores to do, there's kids to take off your wife's hands or your husband's hands or whatever it might be, and so you don't get to recover properly. Life is still there. So I don't recommend doing really long runs. And even for my athletes that are doing 100-mile races, for example, they will generally not get anything more than around 20 to 22 miles, maybe up to 25, depending on the athlete, as their longest long training run. What happens around those runs is where the magic happens, utilizing back-to-backs. Not for the reason that many people think. I like to use back-to-backs in the context of it's a good amount of volume all in one short space of time. Not because we want to simulate running on tired legs. There was a little bit of an element of that, but overdoing that can actually lead to overtraining, injury, that kind of stuff. And actually training in a suboptimal state isn't good. So limiting the amount of back-to-backs is key. But what I do like to do when it comes to the long run is I like to suggest to my athletes to go and do tune-up races, or B races, C races, whatever you want to call. Your A race is like your 100-mile ultramarathon, but maybe at some point in the build-up we do a B race or C race, which is purely there as an exercise in getting you ready for your big, long ultramarathon. So what I tend to suggest is, if you're doing a 100-miler, then it might be that a 50-miler or 40 to 50 miler is a good amount of time for a good distance for a tune-up race. And what I like about that, let me go a little bit further. So 100k, it might be something like a 50k, potentially up to 40 miles. For a 50 miler, probably a 50k is enough as a tune-up race. And I always try and get them to pick something that is as similar as possible to their main race. So if it's a really mountainous 100-miler, let's see if we can get you in on a mountainous 50k, for example, or 40-miler, 50-miler tops. If it's a really flat one, let's do something flat. You get the picture. We're looking for specificity there. When it comes to the reasons I prefer to use a race as a long run, rather than just rocking out of bed on a Sunday morning and going out into the mountains and trying to do 50 miles on your own where there's no aid stations, no support around, that kind of stuff. If that's your bag, then fine, have at it. But the more sensible, structured approach when it comes to doing a race, first of all, you pretty much inevitably treat that entire day, and even the day before and the day afterwards, as it is a race. Things like chores and all that sort of stuff kind of goes out of your mind and out of your schedule as well. So when you do the race, you get back from the race, you're going to spend time recovering from it, rather than rocking up after being out all day. For a random training run, you're probably going to be thinking about it much more in the context of, right, I've raced today, I need to do all of the things around race day, carb loading for it properly, recovering afterwards for it properly. Really just kind of focusing on the race itself when you're in the race too. When you're out for a training run, if you're like me, I end up spending half my time thinking about chores or business stuff or what the kids have got going on, or whatever. So that's the first reason I like it. Second reason is logistics. When you go out and do a really long training run, you've got to think about, can I time it so I hit a church at a certain point and use the tap outside to fill my water bottles, or a shop, or whatever it might be. And the thing in a race is that you've got aid stations. It's all there, set out purposely at intermittent points throughout the race. So you can actually practice not just getting your hydration, but your fueling. But perhaps there's a drop bag point on the race that you've chosen to do. There's going to be support along route. You just have much more support to help you through that long run, rather than having to try and think about where it is you're going to need to go if it was a training run. And the third reason I really like using training races as training runs is you get to experience race day before your main race. If you haven't raced in a little while, the whole ritual around going to a race, there's kind of there's a big part of that, and getting used to registration and traveling to the start line, perhaps if it's a point to point, all of that kind of stuff. You get yourself used to it, so that when you do turn up to your main A race, a lot of these things kind of come as second nature. You're going to go and do the registration. You're going to need to go to kit check or whatever it might be. So yeah, those are my reasons for long runs. I just tend to find that when you go out on a really long run on your own, if you're going out with friends and it's maybe you're doing loops and you're okay with doing loops, then there's some of that can be beneficial. But I invariably end up treating that race as the kind of the final long run before somebody's main A race, because of all the things I've just mentioned. It's just much easier to deal with than trying to do it on a long run on your own. So there you go, folks. If you are going to do a really long run because you feel like you need it, book a race 5 to 6 weeks before your main A race. It gives you enough time to recover, gives you enough time to work on any issues like fueling, for perhaps. And yeah, with that, I hope you find that really useful. Please do subscribe, like, share, comment below. Anything you think I've missed out? Do you disagree with me? Please do let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I'll see you then.